Smack you lot! Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between, and welcome to kind of a new show that I'm going to be starting for both video games and movies. This is Drew's Late Reviews. So, the last thing that I reviewed on my own was Stranger Things, and strangely enough, the show that I'm talking about today, I had kind of heard of in the past, but never really watched it because I wanted to watch from the beginning, and I'm so glad that I did. I am talking about today Gravity Falls. Now, this came out in 2013, I believe, so it's been a minute. But I started watching it like Monday. Yeah, Monday night, and it's now Friday night, and I have finished all of it, and I think I had a problem. But I have finished the show, unfortunately, but also also good, because now I can move on to something else to watch, because I could not stop watching this show. It is a show about these two kids who go to their great uncle Stan's, or Grunkle Stan, who lives in this little nowhere town called Gravity Falls. And there's a bunch of weird things happening around there, ranging from like mystical creatures to like strange objects throughout the forests nearby, because it's like up in Oregon, and all of the adventures that they have. And the only things that I really knew about this show before watching it was that at the end, crazy shit starts happening, and that did not disappoint. And this is a kid's show, keep in mind. Like, they have at the end, they basically have the apocalypse happen. And it's not like SpongeBob the movie Road Warrior apocalypse. It's like Cthulhu shit. It's like H.P. Lovecraft up in her. And I had kind of known, like, oh, yeah, like, the apocalypse happens in this fun little kid's show. Okay. And as I'm watching it, there's so many little bits and bobs thrown in to kind of foreshadow things, or foreshadow or throw you off or just surprise you, which for a kid's show that I went into knowing that it's a pretty good show, for it to do this at such a magnitude that I'm like fully gripped into watching all of it in such a short time span, because I've had like work and school this whole week. It's just a treat of a show, and you've not seen it, go do like the 14-day Hulu trial and watch this show, because my God, it's both so good and it's so funny. Like, when I started watching it, usually the first couple episodes are kind of like awkward and things. Like, I'm going to try and watch Rick and Morty, but those first few episodes are just real cringy. And this one, their first couple episodes hit so fucking hard with all of the jokes that I was dying laughing for most of the first season. Like, there was only a couple of things that I didn't laugh too much at, because those were the more action and drama heavy episodes. So, yeah, you're not supposed to laugh a lot in those. And the fact that this is in a kid's cartoon show with all these different references to different things. There's a D&D episode, like, specifically for D&D. That's pretty great for me. I laughed so hard at that episode. But then you've also got like a bunch of like good life lesson episodes scattered throughout, and like a lot of mystery in this because there's a lot of question and theorizing. Because I knew there was a lot of like theory crafting around this show back whenever it was on. Because a lot of people are like, who's the author of the journals? Who did all of this and whatnot? Uh, and so, like, watching the show, yeah, it really does get you wondering, like, who wrote these journals that are basically like the Spiderwit Chronicle. It's kind of got a Spiderwit Chronicle vibe to it, and I'm only now realizing that, which is very strange. um, but like, you're wondering who's the author of this and what happened to them, and they do like a couple of red herrings in it, as well as like who is this one guy I won't name for spoiler's sake, and like what does he do? Who are these guys? Oh, this is just a joke, and that's funny. Like there's so much thrown into the show that I'm surprised both at both at how it only got 2 seasons, but yet surprised they didn't push for a third. Because there's only 2 seasons of it, and they're 20 episodes each, which alone is very strange in how that works, because there's usually like 13 episodes or 26 episodes, but no, it's just kind of around 20. So there's 40 episodes total. And like each of them are 22 minutes. I was not expecting that when I went into it, because I've been watching a lot of like Adventure Time and Steven Universe. Like all of those are 11-minute episodes, but this is like full half-hour blocks of cartoons, which is awesome. They do what they fit into a 22-minute time slot is amazing, because you've got the setup for it. You've got the setup of the like each episode has its own rising action, climax, and then falling, but it also carries on throughout the rest of the show. So like there's rising action, like climax, falling, but then it goes back to rising action in the next episode, basically leaving off where the last episode left off. Which, for a cartoon series to do so well and fluently, I'll compare it to Adventure Time, because these two were kind of competing, because Adventure Time was Cartoon Network, while Gravity Falls is Disney. And so like these two are competing, but there's a lot of Adventure Time episodes that kind of happen in between different storylines and stuff, but Gravity Falls just kind of keeps going with it, and stuff that happened in earlier episodes comes back in the later ones. And the characters are so great. Like, Mabel is the most adorable thing ever, and I thought her voice sounded familiar, but I wasn't sure what it was. And I've heard her like only in a couple of things before, but I like immediately knew who that voice was. I was like, oh yeah, that voice is great for that character. And as the show goes on, like, you don't even hear the voice actor. That's just Mabel, which is great. Dipper he's got a lot of the like he's the like main character along with Mabel, but he's more the straight man and the mystery solver. He's like the Fred of the group. If you wanted to compare it to Scooby-Doo. And Mabel's kind of the Shaggy, if you will. Kind of? Yeah. Well, like, he's a smart kid. He finds the journal, he reads them, and basically lives them. So it kind of... It's hard... He's hard to explain. He's like that teenager that everybody is whenever they're like young, because they're 12 years old, and so he's kind of that in those awkward years, and so he's a very relatable character. We'll go with that. Um, Stan is kind of great and also kind of the worst throughout this show. Cause like he's one of the funniest. Like him and another character I'll get to in a minute here have like some of the best jokes and best punchlines throughout the entire show. And he's that grumpy old man. But is he kind of a vibe? And they kind of tease that throughout, and then they kind of more reveal it later that there's more to him, which makes that character so interesting because you see like the double life thing to him. And then there's Seuss, which is like the handyman of the place where they work, the Mystery Shack, which is a hoax, like Ripley's Believe It or Not type of museum. And like Seuss is probably my favorite character out of everybody, because he's this guy who's not too smart. He's like that big nerd dude that you kind of see in places, and you wonder, like, that guy seems like he'd be a lot of fun to hang out with, but man, what happened to him? Type of thing. Because like he's not quite all there, but he's just the funniest guy. And I'm playing with something. And he's just like he's just so funny. Like he has his like stupid moments, but then he has his like hilarious references and he's basically all of the comic relief wrapped into one, but he's his own thing as well, which I love. There's a lot of references in this movie. Well, not in this movie, in the show. Like there's a lot of Star Wars stuff, which for a minute I'm like, can they do that word for word? Can they? Oh yeah, Disney owns it. Because there's a lot of Star Wars quotes said, a bunch of different movie references, and they're usually by Seuss. And he's just kind of like that lovable doofus type of character. But I digress. Basically all the characters have so much personality that watching what they're doing is so interesting in themselves. And there's a lot of like physical humor going on in the show as well. But really, I think the characters are probably the best part of the show, along with the show's premise and build of what this town has to offer, which I'm not going to spoil. I want you guys to go and watch this show. I am going to give Gravity Falls a 6 out of 6, which I know I have yet to give any show a bad rating, but I thoroughly enjoyed this show so much that I watched it within like a week. And let's see, 20 minutes times, 20 times 40 would be 800. 800 divided by 60 would be, 800 plus minutes of a TV show that I consumed in like less than a week, like 4 days. I love this show, and you need to go and watch it. Because if you don't, that's fine. It might not be your cup of tea, but there's still so many jokes. Like the characters are just fun to watch. The mysteries that they have are always interesting, and the build up to the end of the show, and even just like the second season, when the second season hits, like shit starts going down, and it just ramps up from there. So it's basically almost the perfect show, I would say. Like, there's a few kind of meh moments throughout it, but everything has that. And I don't think a perfect show could exist, but if it could, I would honestly say this would be the show. Because there's been, like, I love Adventure Time because I finally watched all the rest that I haven't seen yet besides Season 7, which is going on. And I love Steven Universe. But the fact that this is, like, and those are still going on, which is great. But at the same time, this show got so popular and was, like, the thing that Disney had that people wanted more, but it's done. And they knew when to end it, and it got me a little bit here. It got me quite a bit here. So they knew when to quit, and they did, and it's just perfect the way it is. I would love if they made more, but they don't need to. Like, they've wrapped it all in a good 40 episode package. They're done. You don't need any more. Go and watch the show. Go check it out on Hulu. You can find it in other nefarious ways, but just even check it out. If you don't like it, I understand. If it's not your cup of tea, it's not your cup of tea. But for me, this show was great. And that's all that I have to say about it, honestly. I could go on longer. I could just stop. And I probably should stop. But I could go on and on about it and spoil different things for you. But I don't want to do that. Like, I'm only telling you what I knew going into this. And, like, what kind of the characters that there are. If you like this video, like, share, subscribe in the comment section below. If you've seen Gravity Falls, tell me what you thought about it and start a conversation, because I would honestly love to talk to somebody about this, because it is such a good show that I would force it down anybody's throats. So 6 out of 6 would watch again, and I might at some point as well. So until next time, guys, I'm Drew here signing off. Take it easy.